Welcome to Planet MicroCap. I'm your host, Robert Kraft, and joining me right now is Martin Turenne. He is the president, CEO, and director at FPX Nickel Corp. It's a publicly traded company. I got two symbols for you: FPX on the TSX Venture and FPOCF on the OTCQB. And FPX Nickel will be presenting at the upcoming Precious Metal Summit Beaver Creek, happening September 13th through 16th, 2022. For more information, please go to precioussummit.com. And with that, Martin, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Doing well, Robert. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. So we did an interview about 12 months ago. We're going to get into the update a little bit, but to start us off, what would you say is that quick overview of FPX?
Yeah, FPX has focused rather on the development of a very large nickel deposit in central British Columbia. It's at the PEA stage right now. It's something that we think that could be in production, delivering nickel to the North American EV battery industry here before the end of the decade.
Very good. Well, actually, that ties right into, my next question here, because like I said, the last interview that we published about 12 months ago, we published that on August 13, 2021. And in that interview, we talked about how at that time there was a, Elon Musk call to mining businesses to produce more green nickel. So, love to hear where we're at in terms of how that affects FPX and your development cycle, and then maybe some other highlights from the company in the last 12 months or so.
Yeah, so I mean, the prominence of nickel and its role in EV batteries has only gotten way more pronounced over the course of the last year. Traditionally, Tesla had been very much a leader in going out and securing raw materials for its supply chain, but now it seems like with every passing day, certainly every passing week, we're seeing another major automaker announcing deals to secure those raw materials, whether that's Ford, General Motors, Volkswagen. Right across the board, whether it's in North America, Europe, and into Asia. And so, the role of nickel is, as I said, kind of fundamental to support that transition to EVs. And what that means for companies like FPX is it really expands the universe, so to speak, of potential strategic partners or funding partners for us as we continue to advance this project. As I like to say, companies like us, we are nickel rich, but we are always, seeking capital to continue the advancement of our projects. The car companies and the battery companies, they are capital rich, but they're starved for nickel. So there's really a great opportunity there for collaboration and partnership with those downstream battery makers and car makers. And I think that's a huge story that people are not quite seeing yet and understanding yet as a value driver for companies like FPX Nickel.
Absolutely. And another thing to play, I don't know if it's devil's advocate, but also just talking about in the difficulty. And okay, let's say you have a great project. Let's say, okay, we're ready to go. What are some of the next steps, and how hard and difficult is it taking it from project stage to production for nickel? And why is it different than some of the other metals out there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a classic story really in any kind of mining scenario where moving through from a discovery through engineering studies, environmental assessment and permitting, and then ultimately into construction operation. That typically is a cycle that can last, upwards of 15 to 20 years in a lot of cases. In our case, we've been working at this project for the last 12 years, and we see a potential finish line towards a final investment decision here, but like I said, before the end of the decade. For us, that work is really going to revolve on a few key areas. From an engineering standpoint, we're looking at the kind of optimizing metallurgical recoveries to produce that battery grade nickel product, but just as importantly, really continuing our engagement efforts with local communities. We're currently doing environmental baseline studies, and that work will eventually feed into the environmental assessment and permitting process. So lots of work streams across all different aspects of the project. It's a pretty exciting time.
See, it's interesting. It's arguably a critical metal right now. And like, what does fast tracking getting it into production even really look like? I mean, you said even from now it's the end of the decade, right? So like, what in healthcare and on that side, you have some fast track for various disease and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I'm curious from your end, an answer to that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, obviously, if you come up with a vaccine for something, you can potentially get it fast tracked through trials, et cetera. And there's a mechanism, within governments to be able to do that. It's a little bit different with the mining industry. At the end of the day, I'd say the key sort of critical path item for these projects tends to be the environmental assessment or permitting process. And as much as I think companies would love to see that process be shortened, fundamentally, it really requires extensive data collection and engagement with local communities. And it's really hard to short circuit that. Mining companies have to do things the right way. And I think where governments can play a role is in offering sort of more certainty, let's say, on what those timelines are going to be, as well as providing capacity to those local communities to really give them the ability to be engaged in that process. So government does have a role to play, but fast tracking mining maybe it sounds easy to do on paper, but in practice, I'm not sure how easy it is to actually execute.
Absolutely. So, okay, Martin, to close this out here, from what you can tell us, what would you say are some of the company's value catalysts now for the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, the company has sort of two elements to its focus. One is development of the Baptiste nickel deposit. It's a very well-defined deposit, one of the largest nickel deposits in the world. And the focus there is really on metallurgical studies and engineering studies towards the next stage of project technical report, which we expect in the middle part of 2023. In parallel with that, we're also doing a lot of exploration. So we're doing exploration drilling and step-out drilling at a new discovery that we made last year. That is called the Van discovery. It's a few kilometers away from our existing Baptiste deposit. The hypothesis with Van is that it could potentially host a deposit that is larger and or higher grade than Baptiste. So while we continue to move Baptiste as quickly as possible towards that construction decision, in parallel, we've got this super exciting, exploration blue sky that we're also pushing forward. So really something for everyone who's looking at sort of nickel exploration and nickel development.
Very good. Well, Martin, with that, where can our audience go and find more information on FPX Nickel?
So of course, our website, fpxnickel.com, is a good place to go. And I'd also encourage people to follow us on our YouTube channel, as well as our Twitter feed. We post a lot of information there about the nickel market, in addition, obviously, to information about FPX itself.
Very good. Well, Martin, thank you so much for joining me today. Really do appreciate it. Good luck, stay safe, and I look forward to our next update.
Thanks, Robert.
And again, FPX Nickel will be presenting at the upcoming Precious Metals Summit Beaver Creek, happening September 13th through 16th, 2022. For more information, please go to precioussummit.com.